So today we are discussing about virtual machine, and it's a snapshot and power on issues. So prior to that, we'll discuss about virtual machine related files. So a virtual machine consists of a set of files located in a data store accessible by the VMware ESXi host to which it is registered. So whenever you provision a virtual machine, that particular virtual machine related files will be stored in a data store. It might be local or data store. In that, your virtual machine folder name will be created during the provisioning. At the same time, you can see the following configuration files on the particular folder. So the configuration files looks like this. So your VMX, assume you have provisioned a Win01-A virtual machine on your data store. It is created a Win01-A folder on top of the data store. Inside the folder, virtual machine folder, you can see the following configuration files. So during the troubleshooting, you should be aware of these following configuration files. Otherwise, it will be tough to troubleshoot your virtual machine related issues. So to troubleshoot your common virtual machine issues, you must understand what the underlying virtual machine files are used for resolving virtual machine problems. Okay. So configuration file stored with the .vmx file, swap file stored with the .vswp, BIOS file saved with the .nvram, log file stored with the vmware.log file, raw device map file. If it is raw disk file is mapped, then it will be saved as rdm.vmdk file, and the disk descriptor file saved as .vmdk, disk data file saved as flat.vmdk file, snapshot data file saved as .vmsd, snapshot state file saved with .vmsn, so snapshot disk descriptor file that's saved as 501.vmdk file. If there is a secondary snapshot descriptor file, it starts with 502. Like that, how many snapshots you created, the particular snapshot disk descriptor file will be created with this sequence. 501.vmdk file. Using this naming convention, your snapshot disk descriptor file will be start. So snapshot disk file will be stored as delta.vmdk file. So any questions on this slide? Any questions on this particular slide? Are you guys able to hear me? So flat. Okay, let me answer Sridhar query, then I will answer your query, Murli. So flat.vmdk file. So this is a disk data file. So your hard disk, whatever data you are storing in the virtual machine, that will be stored in flat.vmdk file. And your vmdk file contains only descriptor file. So it contains, so this vmdk is mapped with so and so storage. that information will be there on your disk descriptor file. And your disk data file will have all the, that is flat.vmdk, that contains all your virtual machine data file. Whatever partitions you created, that will be created under flat.vmdk file, and your disk descriptor file will be associated with this flat.vmdk. Then only it will know so and so vmdk file contains so and so partitions. Sridhar, is that clear? So I hope Murali query also I answered. Murali, are you talking about a disk descriptor or snapshot descriptor file? So snapshot disk descriptor file is different. Whenever you initiated a snapshot, during that time your snapshot disk descriptor file will be automatically created for your vmdk file. Okay, so it contains your snapshot disk file list or associated information. Okay, and your okay, so snapshot state, in the sense, if the virtual machine is in a suspended state, during that time if you take the snapshot, the state file will be saved under the .vmsn file, that is snapshot state file. Okay, any other questions? So I'm moving to the next slide. So virtual machine 1, virtual machine issue 1. So let's see what is that. Taking a cascade VMware snapshot of a virtual machine fails. So during virtual machine snapshot taking, there are two methods when you are generating a virtual machine snapshot: without cascade virtual machine snapshot, or with snapshot with cascade VMware snapshot you can take. Okay, so let's see what is that. A virtual machine generating a heavy I/O workload might encounter issue when queue-checking prior to a snapshot operation. This is one of the reason your cascade VMware snapshot fails on your virtual machine. Queue-checking can be done by using the following technologies, that is your Microsoft Volume Shadow Copy Service. We will call it as VSSS. So this service is available with your Windows 2003 and XP operating systems onwards. This service provided by your Microsoft. Then from VMware perspective, to function queue-checking method or queue-checking feature, you should install the sync driver by using your VM tools installation. So while installing VMware tools, sync driver will be installed. If sync driver is not installed, your queue checking will not function properly and it fails most of the times. So these are the major reasons your virtual machine queue checked virtual machine snapshot fails. Okay. So before verifying a Valiant Shadow copy service queue-checking issue, ensure that you are able to create a manual non-cascade snapshot with the snapshot manager in the VMware vSphere web client or VMware vSphere client. Okay, so these are the steps you have to verify it when a cascade VMware Snapshot is failed on your virtual machines. So whether there is a huge IO workload, you have to verify that. So if it is a normal IO load on your virtual machine, by seeing performance of your virtual machine disk file, you can able to identify IO workload. So Cascade basic functionalities you have verified is queuing is working or not. Whether working or not, you have to validate by using your guest operating system volume shadow copy service. If it is in stopped state, you have to restart. Then second one is VMware tools sync driver should function properly. If sync driver not function properly, your Cascade VMware virtual machine snapshot will be failed. Any questions on this slide? And moreover, these IO workloads will be used on your, if you are taking snapshots on especially Exchange, database, these servers, if you are taking a snapshot, you have to validate IO performance. Then you have to run the Cascade VMware snapshot. Okay. Right. And moving to the next slide. So resolving Cascade snapshot failures. If you are queuing with VSS, ensure that the following items are done. VSS prerequisites are met. So prerequisite means from Windows 2003 and Windows XP. If you are using guest operating systems, your VSS will be function properly. Appropriate services are running and the start types are correct or not. So this particular volume shadow copy service is running or not, you have to validate from your guest OS using the services.msc. So I am just opening in my laptop because it is Windows 8 operating system. I just want to show you that. So here is the volume shadow copy service. So by default, this should be in start state on your virtual machine. Then only you can able to perform the QSec's virtual machine snapshot. Otherwise, your virtual machine snapshot will be failed. Okay. So if it is stop, you have to start that. Then you have to run the Cascade virtual machine snapshot. And the VSS provider is used or not, you have to validate it. Once your service is started, then your VSS provider by default it will be used and you can able to check from your task properties on guest OS. All the VSS writers are stable and not reporting any errors. This you can able to validate on your guest operating system event viewer. From there you can able to check that. Okay, if you are QSing with the sync driver, you have the following options: disable the sync driver and stop the service generating heavy IO before taking a snapshot. So the sync driver is required only for legacy versions of Windows that do not include volume shadow copy service. So prior to the 2003 or XP missions, you cannot disable these sync drivers and stop the services because that by default won't have the VSS service. And even sync driver also not suitable. Okay, in those services, if you are forcibly install the VMware tools, then you have to disable the sync driver if you are taking QSecing snapshot on Windows 2000 or Windows Millennium, Windows 7, sorry, Windows Millennium and before versions, 97, 98. Those versions, this QSecing virtual machine snapshot is not suitable. So those conditions you have to stop the VMware tool sync driver, then you can perform the QSecure snapshot on your virtual machines. So any queries on this slide? Any questions on this slide? So I'm moving to the next slide. So virtual machine. Yes, Sridhar, sync. Sync is a driver. It is defaultly installed with your VMware tools. So you no need to download from any location. That is by default available on your VMware tools. Whenever you mounted a VM tools CD on your virtual machine, it will install by default. Yes. So it's not sync service. It's a volume shadow copy service should be start. And your sync services will be start on your VMware tools. Whenever your VMware tools in running state on your virtual machine, by default your sync driver will be start. Okay. Any questions? So VSS is not available. Your VSS is available from your Windows 2003 and server version Windows 2003 and desktop versions above Windows XP versions. You can able to find the VSS service. So it's not available on VSS is not available on your Windows 98 version. Your VSS is available from your Windows XP onwards. So moreover 95, 98 Microsoft itself not supporting. You guys no need to worry about that. Okay. So right now we are in almost yeah, I understand that. So Windows 95, 98 it will not support. Sync driver will be not there by default on your VMware tools. And moreover, if you wanted to install 95, 98 on vSphere 6, first of all vSphere 6 itself not supports. Okay. You have to install 95, 98 on your virtual infrastructure 3.0 you can able to install it. Okay. So any other questions? Okay. So moving to the next slide. So virtual machine issue 2. Snapshot information is incorrect or does not appear in Snapshot Manager, but Delta files are present. So when you right click on virtual machine, if you go to the Snapshot Manager, you are not able to see the snapshot information which you recently took, or it is not your snapshot is not visible on your Snapshot Manager which recently took. But if you browse the virtual machine folder, you are able to see the Delta files, snapshot related Delta files. That is virtual machine dot 501 dot Delta file or 501 dot VMDK file. So those files you are able to see it. So in that case, you have to do the initial checks, confirm that the virtual machine is not pointing to the base disk. Here if you are able to see that, so this should not happen. And confirm that that virtual machine is not pointing to the your base disk. Base disk in the sense your virtual machine dot VMDK file. It should not point to your .vmdk file. It should point whenever you perform the snapshot, By default, the location whatever you are seeing disk file should locate to your snapshot delta files. To verify that, open the virtual machine configuration files through vSphere web client and go to the VMware hardware. Under hard disk, under disk file, you can able to see the which disk file it is mounted. Okay. So any questions on this slide? Okay. Shravan, Hari. Okay. Moving to the next slide. So resolving no snapshot displayed in snapshot manager on your virtual machine. So this issue might occur when initiating the delete or delete all operations on snapshot. When you right click on virtual machine snapshot manager, you can able to see delete or delete all operations or options. So those snapshots might not initiated appropriately. That is the reason you are not able to see the snapshot information on your virtual machine snapshot manager. So snapshot details are deleted from snapshot manager. This is one of the reason. Snapshot files are consolidated and merged. So when you merge the snapshot file, you can't able to see the earlier snapshot file. Okay. So if the consolidation fails, and note the following details. When the snapshot consolidation fails, you can see the following behavior on your snapshot manager for your virtual machine. No snapshots are displayed in snapshot manager. However, snapshot files are still being used on the data store. So this behavior you can able to identify when you are not consolidated snapshot or consolidation fails. Okay. So to resolve this issue, once again you have to perform the snapshot consolidation, then that will be resolve the problem. Some cases your snapshot won't be visible. That time you can't do the snapshot consolidation. In that scenarios, you have to again take a fresh or newly, you have to take a snapshot, then you have to consolidate. Then the consolidation will merge with the earlier data files, snapshot delta files, I mean to say. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Okay, fine. So moving to the next virtual machine issue, that is the user cannot create a comment, a snapshot. So initial for this issue, we have to verify that virtual disk type is supported for snapshots or not. You have to validate, because there are some limitations of your snapshots. That is, VMware does not support snapshots of your raw disks. So RDM physical mode disks are guest operating system that use an SKC initiator SKC initiator presented disk space to your guest OS. So RDM physical disk mode disks will not supported for your snapshot commitment, but RDM virtual mode disk will be support to snapshot commit option. So remember that. So only RDM physical mode disk will not support your snapshot if you are trying to perform the snapshot commit. Okay. And the other limitation is snapshots are not supported when you are using VMware vSphere direct path IO to direct access PCI devices. So your virtual machine is connected with external storage using the direct path IO or direct access PCI devices. So those components will not support to perform or to commit your virtual machine snapshot. And also, if you have reached 32 levels of snapshots, you cannot create more snapshots. So you have to validate that snapshot limit also. Any questions on this slide? Okay, so I'm moving to the next slide. So identify the possible causes to commit a snapshot. Let's see. So take a top-down approach to troubleshoot, starting with VMware vCenter server permissions and check the virtual machine files. Then check the ESXi host data stores. So let's see. On ESX, as a top-to-down approach, we have to validate vCenter servers. So you are having appropriate permissions to commit snapshots or not. You have to check that. So under vCenter server, you can find the permissions tab. Under that, just verify whatever user you are using, that particular user having appropriate permissions to commit snapshot or not. You have to validate it. The second one is virtual machine. The delta VM file, the delta.vmdk file does not have any associated descriptor file. So this need to be validated. This you can able to validate by right-clicking on your virtual machine, edit settings. Under that, find the hard disk. Under hard disk, find disk file path. So there, the data VMDK file should not be mapped or associated. And if still not the problem resolves, then go to the ESXi host, then check the snapshot file size reached maximum, not supported by the data store. Okay, so there is a limitation for your snapshot size for your virtual machines on your data store. So, and at the same time you can verify. That is the reason we leave 20% headroom for your data stores. Because of snapshots creations during the backups, automatically snapshot will be created, or users will be created. VMware admin can create a snapshot. So during that task, it's required some amount of free space. If that amount of free space is not there, your snapshot creation will be fail. So you have to verify whether sufficient space is available on your data store to commit your snapshot. If there is insufficient space, this snapshot commit will be failed. Any questions on this slide? Okay, moving to the next slide. So possible causes for your snapshot commitment issue. No permissions to create a snapshot. So the VMware vCenter server roles, administrator and virtual machine power users will give the permissions to create the snapshots. Okay. So these roles you have to verify your particular whatever user you are using to commit or to create a snapshot. Verify that particular user is part of administrator or virtual machine power user group. Okay, if the user is not associated with the administrator or virtual machine power user group, so he won't have permissions to create a snapshot. So to resolve this issue, perform the following steps or tasks. So give the access to whatever user ID you are using, that particular user ID associate with your virtual machine power user role or administrator role. So that will give the permissions. Any questions on this slide? So Mohan, I don't have the lab access. Okay. So where we can find the details, can you show me physically in the sense you wanted to know the permissions? Can you share your desktop to remote admin? Sorry, any desk. Yes. So open the vCenter server. Okay. So I think it's still starting. I will show you that once it is back. So any other questions on this slide? Okay. Murli, let me know once your vCenter server is back. Meanwhile, I will go to the next slide. So possible causes: missing a delta descriptor file. Due to that, you are not able to commit or create a snapshot. So a snapshot disk file consists of virtual disk descriptor file and paired to your delta extent file. These delta files are based on your VMFS spare format, intended to store the delta content for a period of time, otherwise known as a snapshot. So here we have the example as well as for that. So a snapshot delta file is not associated with your descriptor file. This particular delta file is not associated with this particular descriptor file. So it doesn't know where to go and on which delta file need to be create this particular snapshot if that particular descriptor file is not found. So during that case, you have to create the delta.vmdk for your descriptor file. For that, you have to copy the base descriptor file that is available on your virtual machine folder and giving it the name of the missing descriptor file. So if you are not able to find the descriptor file this, you have to just copy this file and you can rename it. That is what here it's saying that. Then you can able to perform or commit snapshot. So any questions on this slide? So whenever your delta file does not associate with your disk file, so during that time you are not able to commit your snapshot on your virtual machine. So for that you have to recreate the descriptor file for your delta.vmdk. So for that you have to copy your delta file and you can rename it as descriptor file format. So delta file will start with the example vm-501-delta.vmdk that you have to copy it and rename as example vm-50.vmdk file. So then you can able to commit your virtual machine snapshot. This is one of the method to create your missing delta descriptor file. Okay, is that clear, Sridhar? So other guys, you have any questions on this slide? Okay, so moving to the next slide. So possible causes for maximum full size reached by your data store. The size of snapshot reached a maximum file size that is not supported by the data store. For VMware vSphere VMFS volume data stores, the maximum file size is about 62 TB. So more than that, your VMFS file data store will not support. It means more than 62 TB size of file will not accept by your VMFS file data store. If snapshots are to be used, consider the overhead while deciding the maximum size of the disks. So snapshot taken on VMDKs larger than 2 TB are now in space efficient spares virtual disk format. So you can able to take the maximum snapshot size disk file is larger than 2 TB, and that file will be stored into SC spares disk format. We will call it as space efficient spares virtual disk. It means this is one of the compressed format will be saved on your data store. Okay, if it is larger than 2 TB, then only your snapshot VMDK files will be stored in your SC spares disk format. Remember that. Okay, so you have to validate if snapshot files are larger than 2 TB is there on your virtual machine folder. Due to that reason, you are not able to commit snapshot. That is also one of the reason. Okay, here we are indicating VMware is indicating 2 points. One is if more than 2 TB snapshot VMDK files are there, then that will be used space efficient spares virtual disk format. And if you find space efficient spares virtual disk on your data store for your virtual machine, so you can't commit or you can't create snapshot file. So to resolve this, ensure that your virtual disk file do not expand to more than 62 TB size. Consolidate your snapshot on regular basis. So maximum VMware recommends 72 hours you have to consolidate your snapshots. Okay, so if it is more than 72 hours, it will kill your virtual machine performance. Day by day, drastically your virtual machine performance will be decreased because your snapshot file will be grown, and due to that your virtual machine performance will be decreased, because in data store space also increases, and if it is exceeded your virtual machine will be goes down. That is also one of the major impact. So any questions on this particular slide? Okay, I am moving to the next slide. So possible causes for your snapshot commit issue: insufficient space on your data store. So the space on the data store is insufficient to commit all snapshot. To verify that enough space exists, log into the ESXi host through SSH and run the following command: df space -h. Then you can able to see the following information. So here it is representing local, 01 is the LUN or data store name, and the shared is a data store name. And you can verify how much percentage of data store is used. So here we are seeing that 3% of data store is used. So you can able to perform the snapshots. So like that in second data store, shared data store, you are having 48% of space is utilized and 52% of space is available to perform snapshot commit. And if there is a insufficient space on your data store, to resolve that issue, you have to increase the size of your data store and move virtual machines to data store with sufficient space available data stores using the storage vMotion technology. So this is the one of the method you can able to free up the data store space. Any questions on this slide? Okay, so I'm moving to the next slide. So virtual machine issue 4, powering on a virtual machine fails. When you are trying to powering on a virtual machine, it shows some errors. Let's see what are those. So first initially you have to check, view the error message. What is error message it is displaying on your tasks and events. You have to validate that. View the error message either displayed in the vSphere web client or vSphere client found in the virtual machine log file. So .vmware.log file that is available on your virtual machine folder. Open that particular vmware.log file, then you can able to see the hint for virtual machine not able to power on issue. Okay. Even you can go to the virtual machine tasks and events. From there also you can able to find the hint. Any questions on this slide? Okay, moving to the next slide. So for powering on a virtual machine issue, so you have to take top to down approach to troubleshooting. Start with the virtual machine files, then check the ESXi host. So verify as part of the top to down approach, you have to first verify virtual machine related files. One or more virtual machine files are missing. Example .vmx file is missing. Then you can't power it on your virtual machine, and clearly in the tasks and events of virtual machine you can able to see .vmx configuration file was missing. If it is a vswap file is missing, then the same error will be displayed. Even any VMDK is missing, even that VMDK missing information will be displayed on your virtual machine tasks and events. And the second reason or second possible cause is one of the virtual machine files is logged on different ESXi host. Due to that also you may not able to power on the virtual machine, and you can able to see this hint on your virtual machine task. It will show you that the particular virtual machine file was logged on so and so ESXi host. Then you have to kill or release that particular virtual machine file. You have to release it, then you have to power on the virtual machine. And still, if you are seeing issues, then you have to go to your ESXi host, then you have to validate. There is a insufficient resource exist on the ESXi host or not. To power on your virtual machine, there is a sufficient CPU memory is available on this particular ESXi host, you have to validate. There might be reason for insufficient resource on your ESXi host also one of the cause. The second reason is the ESXi host is not responsive. If you go to the inventory tab, you can able to find out your ESXi host is in not responding state. During that time also you can't power on virtual machine. So these are the causes to not able to start the virtual machine. Any questions on this slide? So, and there are other possible causes for virtual machine not able to start. So one or more of the virtual machine files are missing. So VMDK files are missing, due to that you are not able to power on your virtual machine. This event will be displayed on your virtual machine tasks and events, as well as virtual machine VMware.log file. You can able to find out that. As part of the best practice, if it is a critical VM, you have to take the backup, and whenever there is a accidentally removed or deleted from your data store, then you can restore virtual machine files from your backup jobs. So that is one of the solution if the virtual machines files are missing. To determine if virtual machine files are missing, so you can able to log into the ESXi host where the virtual machine is present using the SSH session. You take the SSH session using the putty tool, then execute the following CLI command on your ESXi host where that particular virtual machine is present. ls space slash vmfs slash volumes slash data store name slash your virtual machine for virtual machine name. Under that you just type ls. You can able to see the all virtual machine related files. If you find some file is missing, then you have to restore it from backup. So if you are not using a backup, you can able to restore only the following files. .vmx file, you can able to restore it. By default, you will have, whenever you created a virtual machine, you will have the .vmxf file that you can copy it and rename as .vmx file. So .vmx file contains hypertext markup language. So the same content is available on your .vmxf file also. So that you can rename it and you can able to use it, then you can able to power on the virtual machine. Are you guys are able to follow me? Okay. So to resolve your virtual machine file issue, so restore the missing files or files from your last backup. If you observed any of the file is missed, so you aware of that. So to power on your virtual machine, you need .vmx file, .nvram file, .vmdk file, and .flat.vmdk file. If these files are not presented on your virtual machine provision folder, so your VM will not power on. So to avoid that, to fix that, you have to restore the missing files from your last backup for this virtual machine. So that is the one way you can able to restore the virtual machine files, then you can able to power it on. If a descriptor file is missing, then you can able to recreate the descriptor file manually. So you can copy the descriptor file, that is vmdk file, and you can able to recreate that from your delta file. Your delta file is flat.vmdk, that you can rename it as .vmdk file, and you can able to power on your virtual machine. Okay. So Sridhar, you want me to repeat once again? Shravan. So to see what are the files are available on your virtual machine folder, you have to log into the ESXi host through SSH. Then you have to execute the ls command. Then you can able to see the available files on your virtual machine folder. Okay. Even from GUI also you can able to browse this. You have to go to the particular appropriate data store. Under the data store, you have to go to the particular virtual machine folder. There you can able to see the following files. Okay. So I am moving to the next slide. So possible causes of virtual machine file is locked. Due to that, you are not able to power it on. So one of the virtual machine files are disk file is locked. So first of all, you have to determine which, which file is locked. So when you power on a virtual machine, it will show you the hint which file is locked. It will show you a error. So using the touch and the file name of your VMDK, instead of file name, you have to give the VMDK file name here. Using the touch command, you can able to find which VM file is locked on your ESXi host. You can able to find out. The touch command you have to execute on your ESXi host where your virtual machine is present. Once you determine that, using the VMKFS tools space -d and whatever file is locked, that file path you have to mention it in this format, then you can execute this command. Then it will be release. Okay, so then you can able to power on your virtual machine. Once you unlock this or release this VMDK file using the VMKFS tool space -d space your virtual machine VMDK path. Any questions on this slide? So whatever issues I am discussing, these will be faced in your day-to-day operations on your VMware virtual environments, especially your VMware virtual machines. So these are the problems you will face that in your day-to-day operations. So resolving a locked virtual machine file. So first you have to determine using the locked virtual machine file using the VMKFS tools space -d space your virtual machine VMDK file path. Then you have to determine which ESXi host has a network adapter with the MAC address from the VMFSK tools output. Then you have to identify the process that holding the locked file of your virtual machine. So for that you have to use lsof space -grep. This command you have to execute on your ESXi host. Then it will show you on which ESXi host. If it is a cluster ESXi clusters, then it will be show you which ESXi node this particular virtual machine file was locked. It will be show you. Okay, then you have to kill that particular process using the VMKFS tools space -d. You can execute that or you can reboot your ESXi host, then it will be release the locked file for your virtual machine. So if you are not familiar with the CLI mode, so you no need to execute, just reboot your ESXi host taking maintenance window, then it will release the locked virtual machine file. Okay, any questions? So if you are improperly shut down your virtual machines and when you are running a vMotion, when you are doing a snapshot, middle of the task accidentally you have terminated, during that time your files will be logged on your ESXi host. Not only vMotion, storage vMotion. So if you are performing a snapshot during the middle of task, if you cancel, then these kind of issues will be occur. Your virtual machine files will be locked. Okay. So any other questions on this slide? So moving to the next slide. So possible causes of insufficient resource on ESXi host, due to that you are not able to power on your virtual machine. So insufficient resource on the ESXi host. So when you are powering on the virtual machine, you have to verify there is a sufficient CPU, memory and storage resource available on your ESXi host to power on your virtual machine. And to resolve this issue, perform one of the following tasks, that is decrease the CPU and memory reservations on the virtual machines so that dedicatedly the CPU and memory resource will be allocated to your virtual machine. So you won't see the insufficient resource error while powering on virtual machine. So the second option or second resolution is add more resource to the ESXi host or cluster or resource pool so that your virtual machine can allocated or associated with assigned CPU, memory and storage resources. Okay, so I will repeat once again the second point. So if there is a insufficient resource on your ESXi host to power on virtual machine, so you have to physically add more CPU, memory and storage for your ESXi host. If it is a resource pool, you have to increase the resource pool capacity. And even it is a cluster, you have to increase the cluster CPU, memory and storage resource. By adding these components, CPU, memory, storage, you can increase the resource on your host cluster and also resource pools. Any questions on this slide? Okay. So moving to the next slide. Possible causes: ESXi host unresponsive when you are powering on a virtual machine. So you have observed that the host ESXi host is unresponsive state. During that time you can't power on virtual machine. So Mohan, reservation in the sense dedicatedly you are allocating CPU memory to your particular virtual machines. So no other virtual machine will be use the reserved resource for your whatever you have reserved for your virtual machine. Assume your virtual machine is A and you have other virtual machines also there in your resource pool. So whatever you have reserved for your virtual machine A resource, that will be not assigned by your ESXi host to other VMs. Is it clear? So it's simple. When you go to the hotels, if you reserve a table, so the hotel guy will not allocate that particular reserved table to any other guy. It is reserved until you confirm that table will be reserved to your name only. Like that, in ESXi host also specific resource is reserved for your virtual machine A, that will be reserved to your virtual machine A only. Okay. So coming back to this slide, so ESXi host is unresponsive state, you are not able to power on virtual machines. So determine if the host has crashed or hung. So most of the case, if you see the PSOD screen, so due to that you can able to see a virtual ESXi host unresponsive state. During that time you can't power on virtual machine. Or whenever your ESXi host is hung, during that time also your host turned into unresponsive state. During that time also you won't able to power on your virtual machines. So you have to dig that. So why ESXi host is unresponsive state? So ping the VM kernel network interface. If you are able to reach ESXi host VM kernel without any ping loss, it means your ESXi host is running fine. But there are VPXA or hostd file services are not responding appropriately. During that time, you have to restart your host service on your ESXi host. And the second one is determine whether VMware vSphere client responds to queries. So ESXi host is responding properly, but your VMware vSphere client is not responding appropriately. Might be that is problem with your VMware vSphere client. Or is there any firewall is stopping to connect your ESXi host? You have to validate that by pinging from your VMware vSphere client node to ESXi host. You can able to check the communication and monitor network traffic from the ESXi host and its virtual machines. So your ESXi host is responding to responding for ping and the VMware vSphere client, but still you are not able to power on, then verify your ESXi host network traffic is IO network IOPS or packets transfer rate is normal or not. You have to validate by seeing the ESXi host performance. Under performance, you have to select network traffic component. Then you can able to see the network traffic packets transfer rate. If transfer rate is normal, then you can able to power on your virtual machine. If network traffic rate is huge, then there is a problem to power on virtual machine as well as your host will not respond to your vSphere client. So these are the three possible causes your host might not respond. And if the host has crossed due to the purpose crash of scheme, during that time also you can able to see the host is unresponsive state. During that time you have to coordinate with your hardware vendor, then you have to diagnose what is causing to appear the purple screen of death. Most of the reason any one of the CPU or memory was damaged or failed or faulty component there, then you can able to see PSOD. When you see the PSOD, you just restart that. Then your ESXi host will be come back by default. Then you can raise a call with your hardware vendor. Then you can find out what is the faulty part on your ESXi host. These are the reasons your ESXi host will not unresponsive. If you fix these problems, you can able to start the virtual machine without any challenges. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Mohan, Hari. Okay. Okay. These are the troubleshooting scenarios you can able to see in your day-to-day operations. Frequently virtual machines you are not able to power on and you will face the snapshot related issues. Only these are the major reasons you can able to see. There is a one more issue, that is virtual machine turned into archive state. Whenever the virtual machine provisioned storage is not available, then your virtual machine state will be turned into archive state. So you have to validate storage is connected appropriately or not. You have to validate. Okay, so troubleshooting concepts are over. So if you guys have any queries, so Murli, can you open the vCenter server console? So select the vCenter server, new vCenter server.breezy.com. Can you select that one? Just select that. Yeah. Here you can able to see the permissions tab. when you selected appropriately, you can able to see which entity you have selected here. Are you guys are able to see this? See Murli desktop. So now you can go to the permissions tab. Here you have to validate. So whatever user you are using to perform snapshot commit or snapshot related task, that particular user should be part of administrator group or that should be part of power user group. If it is part of administrator group, you can able to see the particular group name here. So whoever is part of administrator role, they will by default have full control and they can they can commit the snapshot. And when you see the role is power user, so that particular power user role user also, whoever is part of power user role, those guys also can perform the virtual machine snapshot. So any other questions? Is your query is cleared, Mohan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So any other questions? So if you guys are not having any questions, then we can discuss the interview question and answers on Saturday evening same time if you guys are working. So give me some time. Okay. So Saturday evening, what time you guys are available? Evening, what time you guys are available? Just ping me. After 7, I will be available. Okay. We'll have a quick session around 2 hours we can take and we can close it. Okay. And coming back to Murali. So VRAMs, I am preparing a document, installation configuration. So I will share it by Saturday afternoon. Okay. So you guys can sync and let me know the schedule. I am available after 7 o'clock. Okay. Okay. If you guys are not having any queries, I will close the call. Sridhar, in Saturday, can we have the lab access? Okay. Murli, you are saying something?
డిఫరెంట్ చాలా సార్లు ఇన్స్టాల్ చేసినా అక్కడికి ఆగిపోతుంది సార్ అది.
సో నేను అది మల్టిపుల్
చూద్దాంలేండి
ఇన్స్టలేషన్
సాటర్డే
కి
చూద్దాం.
డాక్యుమెంట్ ఇస్తానండి. ఓకే అండి.
ఓకే
సో జస్ట్ ఫాలో విత్ దట్.
ఓకే
ఓకే. ఓకే అండి అయితే. చలో చలో ఎవ్రీవన్, థ్యాంక్ యూ, గుడ్ నైట్.